Airports. Tyler Bond hated them. They were a necessary evil in his work, but he hated them. They were hurting his marriage. They contained masses of people waiting to be airlifted to their destination like cattle and to be treated like cattle. Maybe he should reframe his thoughts on the matter and just accept that this is the way it is, and he was paid well to put up with it. 10 years ago, you had to stand in line to check in, then stand in line at security, and then stand in line to board the plane, where you would have to stand in line again, waiting for those in front of you to remove their luggage into the overhead compartments, as the line slowly moves toward its location at the back of the plane. Now he didn't have to talk to anyone if he didn't want to. As an experienced traveler, his luggage was no longer checked. TSA Prey has dramatically reduced security wait times at most airports. His years of cross-country travel once a month, plus another shorter trip each month, solidified his status with his favorite airlines, where he typically no longer had to sit in the back of the plane and could sit after first-class passengers. His credit card even gave him lounge access, which was quite nice back there at the Miami airport. Although the experience was much better now, he still didn't like it. Today, however, in the living room, Veronica, an attractive middle-aged woman who looked several years younger than him, wearing a frilly, low-cut dress partially covered by a cardigan, was chatting with him about her recent travels. Toward the end of the conversation, she let the cardigan not cover as much, mouth-watering. He also cheerfully and candidly shared his own stories of travel and war, and at the end of their conversation she handed him a business card. He glanced at the card, not wanting to take his eyes off Veronica, and discovered that she was also from Denver, which led to a few more minutes of conversation. She had one more stop to make before heading home. Perhaps this is for the best. After a pleasant chat, they went back to their gates. Was she flirting with him? Maybe. He wished he had realized this while they were talking. Decades of marriage had dulled his sense of flirting. Crap. Not that anything could or should come of it. He had been 100% faithful throughout his 26 years of marriage and had no intention of changing that. This was one of his cross-country trips, and despite his dislike of airports, he was in a good mood due to his conversation with Veronica and some success on his trip, which would pave the way for an extra bonus next quarter. He had just boarded his plane into a larger Economy Plus seat to return home when his phone rang. He was about to put it into flight mode when it happened. It was his wife, Rebecca. Sigh. It was too early in Denver for her to wake up, let alone call. Considering the hour of the morning, he wondered if it was important. Maybe. His finger hovered over the phone to answer, but he still turned it off. If it had been one of his children, he would have answered the call, of course, but whatever that bat wife of his wanted could wait. He admitted that the journey that began 10 years ago, although limited, had not been easy for them, but it should not have caused so much controversy. He was rarely gone more than 6 nights a month, but it seemed that this was becoming too much. Women. He wishes his wife was more understanding. When he told her about the new position years ago and the increased salary and bonus, his wife practically pushed him out the door, and then she welcomed him and his money home with open arms. Now, despite his attempts to wine and dine her more often and spend more time with her, she became distant. Recently, his boss told him that if he accepted a new position that required more travel, he could make even more money. He did not mention this proposal to his wife. It wouldn't serve a good purpose. The whole situation saddened him, but he had his children, who were fantastic. He loved his children. His daughter Jamie just started pharmacy school in the fall, and his son Mike attended summer school to get a head start on his first year of engineering just like his father. Both parents were, as you'd expect, prude. He missed going to their events, and he missed them getting under his feet. He guessed that Rebecca thought so too, since she seemed sad lately. Whatever their current problems, they raised 2 exceptional children. Smart, funny, hardworking, selfless, with a sense of humor. Over the years, they have received many additional joys. He wanted to see them more often. Since the children now have their own place nearby, he thought of downsizing the hefty house. Rebecca didn't want to hear about it. In addition to her work at the hospital as one of their financial executives, she served on several charitable boards, and the home, neighborhood, and neighbors lived up to her image. The little extra upkeep of the house and yard, compared to a smaller home, was one of the sacrifices Tyler had to make for his wife's social standing. Sigh. The flight was languishing, as it often happens, or, more precisely, he was languishing in a long flight. He wasn't in the mood to watch a movie, and hadn't slept much during the trip, so he decided to close his eyes for a few minutes. He was awakened by the sound of landing. He was surprised that he slept almost the entire trip. He turned his phone back on, and it looked like something had exploded. Voicemails and messages from everyone who was close to him. He called his daughter. "Oh my God, Dad! Thank God you called!" "Jamie, you knew I was on the plane." "What's happening?" "Everyone tried to call me, but no one told me anything." "Well, I'm not going to say anything now. Stop by my place as it's on your way home. Mike will be here too." "Jamie, you can't leave me like this." "Are you and your brother okay? Is your mom okay? Was anyone hurt?" "I'm sorry, Daddy. It's just a big mess. No harm done. Well, none of the people we love. I'll explain everything when I see you." What the heck? Tyler made it from Denver International Airport to his daughter's house near the university in record time. He hurriedly knocked on the door, and she was almost in tears when he entered. He saw his son sitting solemnly in a chair. "What happened, baby?" "Oh, Daddy, we are very sorry. It's a huge mess." Mike said, "It's like a big bazaar. Tell me what happened." Jamie continued, "We didn't want any of this to happen. It just snowballs." "What exactly did you not want to happen?" "Well, we wanted some of this to happen, but not like this." "Darling, you haven't told me anything yet. Tell me exactly." "Fine. It started about a month ago when you were on your last trip to Boston. I was going to visit my mom during lunch, and as I got closer, I saw a Tesla driving into your garage, which was weird. I didn't recognize the car and didn't know who it could be. From the street, I saw that the light was on in the house, and by the way the shadows moved, I saw that someone was walking towards the garage. I called my mother on her mobile phone, but she didn't answer. I waited a few more minutes and called her again. When she answered, I asked if she was home, and she said she was still at work and would talk to me later. Obviously, I suspected that this was a lie, so I hung up and watched the house a little more, wondering what to do. After a while, I moved my car out of sight and sneaked to look through the garage window. Mom's car was there, along with the Tesla. I was furious. I returned to my car, called Mike, and told him what I had seen. I wanted to know who was with Mom. Fueled with anger, I waited for the first 6 hours for him to leave, and then Mike came and watched until he left at 7 Shio the next morning. Mike followed him to work in a large office building in Cherry Creek, entered a few minutes later and asked the security guard if he knew the man who had just entered. He told Mike the name, and Mike called me. We didn't know what to do. I called my mom the next morning, annoyed that she didn't answer my call, and I've been lukewarm towards her ever since. On your last trip we were watching, and the same thing happened. So Mike and I decided to do something about it. Mike chimed in. "I was there when you tested the smoke detectors a few weeks ago, and when I saw the detector in the garage, I came up with an idea that we thought was funny at the time. I don't think it's funny anymore. We were afraid to tell you because we knew you would want to catch them red-handed and would probably kill the bastard and end up killing Mom too. Accidentally or intentionally, and you'll end up in jail. We didn't want this. We wanted to come up with a way to piss them off and embarrass them. I suggested that Jamie sneak into the garage around midnight and cause one of those unexpected sparks that are known to happen to electric cars from time to time, creating enough smoke to set off the alarm. Since the smoke detectors were in good working order, I didn't think anything would happen other than the fire department showing up. I guess that means you didn't know there was a heat detector in the garage and not a smoke detector," said Tyler. Mike had a surprised expression on his face. "Oh, shit. That's why the alarm didn't go off for so long?" Tyler shook his head. Jamie chimed in. "We thought having to have the fire department come would be embarrassing, but it wasn't enough, so I kind of intervened, too." Tyler looked stunned as all the different implications of what the kids had told him began to sink in. He asked, It looks like my marriage has burned to the ground. Is our house intact? Jamie replied, What? Oh, yeah. Well, for the most part. Oh my God. I visited the house after Mom left for work both times, and both times one of Mom's Magnum wine bottles was in the trash can. I know she likes to keep the bottle cold most of the time, so this seemed like the perfect opportunity to add to their embarrassment. These days, it's very easy to buy Viagra or its equivalent online, so I ordered some. I'm studying to be a pharmacist, and with my chemistry degree, it wasn't difficult to turn the tablets into a liquid. Tyler intervened. You didn't do it. I'm afraid so. Yesterday afternoon, I snuck home. I looked at the wine cooler, and Mom had already opened her Magnum bottle, sealed it, and set it down. It turned out that only a cup or two was missing, so I poured in my mixture, stirred it, and put it back, being careful not to leave any traces. We thought they would have to run out of the house when the fire brigade showed up, and he wouldn't be able to hide his erection, which would expose her and her lover to all the neighbors. It's Mike's turn. Shortly before midnight, I climbed through the window in the garage, which I had opened in advance. It took a while, but using the charging port on the car and some tools, I was able to create an arc such that the metal around the area became hot. I don't know if his car was malfunctioning or what, but suddenly there was a shower of sparks. I knew this would set off a smoke alarm, or so I thought, and I got the hell out of there. Obviously, after I left, the battery caught fire. I think he did, because before the firemen could get there, not only his car caught fire, but his mother's too. By this time, the alarm system in the house had gone crazy, and the whole neighborhood could hear it. Jamie said, You know how Mom gets worried when she's upset. It's like her brain just shuts down. This is where the story gets interesting. Even more interesting? More interesting than my wife cheating on me and my house burning down? Jamie continued, We told you the house didn't burn down. Oh, great. Anyway, in the few minutes that I was allowed to talk to my mother this morning, she told me that she jumped out of bed when she heard the alarm. She shook her lover, Eric, but he did not wake up. She knew he had drunk a lot and couldn't wake him up. She thought he was dead and became hysterical. She called 911 from her home phone and started screaming, Fire! Call an ambulance! She then grabbed him by the ankles and started dragging him out of the bedroom and towards the exit, not realizing or thinking about the fact that they were both bare asses. He was too heavy for her to get down the stairs, so she kept dragging him. Again, she wasn't thinking, so he lay face down. Remember how there was a rug nail at the entrance to your bedroom that popped out just enough to snag one of my socks a few months ago when I was visiting? Well, it looks like either you didn't score it, or he or the other one popped back out. Because guess what? Mom was dragging Eric, and he was quite heavy. Or the nail jumped out even more and caught Eric. That's where the fact that he drank all that Viagra and wine comes into play. Not only did the carpet nail cut his insurgent manhood, well, everything below the waist, he also cut his stomach and face. Since the house was quite dark and he was unconscious, his mother did not know this and continued to drag him down the stairs. Bop, 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 by the steps. I almost feel sorry for this dude. In addition to his 3-foot scratch on an important male organ, he has carpet burns from his waist down to his nose, which must have burst when he fell from the bottom step onto the tile kitchen floor. Clap. I'm sure being dragged across the tiles through the front door wasn't very pleasant either, especially when his head flew over the threshold, hit the concrete porch, and rolled down the stairs onto the sidewalk. Bop, bop, clap. He appears to have road rash and a nasty gash on his face. Tyler didn't feel too bad about it. Mike took over the story. The house alarm must have woken up the rest of the neighbors because there seemed to be quite a crowd when Mom dragged her lover, both bare-bottomed, out of the front door in front of everyone. Timothy from across the street even filmed the scene on his phone and sent it to me. Here, look. Tyler couldn't believe what he saw. There was a video on Mike's phone of Rebecca backing out of the front of the house naked, and sure enough, Eric's head was bouncing off the concrete as he walked down the steps while Rebecca continued to drag him. Either her adrenaline was really pumping, or she was stronger than he thought. The ambulance and fire department arrived immediately afterwards. He watched as Cruz ran into the house to open the garage door and began hosing down everything in and around the garage. The ambulance approached his naked wife with an emergency blanket to cover her and turned Eric over. His abused manhood was still hard and dangling for all to see. Tyler could say that he won in this comparison with her lover. Phew, Mike told him. Apparently his electric cars had a device that sent an alert to the home phone when something strange happened to the car. Apparently Eric's wife, Francine, got the message and, seeing her husband's car parked at someone's house rather than at the airport where it was supposed to be, rushed over to investigate. As Tyler continued to watch, he saw that they were unable to revive Eric. He was alive, but unconscious. They brought a gurney from an ambulance help, but before they could strap him in, Francine appeared and flipped her over, sending Eric flying, beak first, onto the sidewalk. He will need more than a few stitches to deal with this new cut on my head. Feel sorry for him, or what? Tyler couldn't remember ever seeing anyone so angry. Francine landed a few good blows to Eric's groin before they were able to pull her away from him, still kicking. When they laid him back on the gurney, his manhood, from the waist down, now looked crooked in a way it hadn't been a few minutes before. Tyler wondered if Eric had woken up while they were trying to fix this. He hoped so. Rebecca stood in horror as at least a dozen or so socially intelligent neighbors watched the tragic comedy unfold. Francine lunged at Rebecca, but instead of hitting her, she pulled the blanket off, again leaving Rebecca naked for at least a minute until another blanket was found. Seeing his wife naked in their front yard, Tyler thought, "Damn, I'm gonna miss this body." However, the neighbors, of course, were not bored. It's safe to say that her care of her private parts was no longer, a private matter. Shame. When officers arrived, the flames appeared to be mostly under control, except for Eric's car, which was spewing sparks and smoldering. Francine, practically foaming at the mouth, screamed at the police to arrest Rebecca. On what charge? No one knew, but the officer had taken Rebecca, clearly shaken, into the back seat of the patrol car just to keep her away from Francine and the onlookers. Jamie said, "We knew that Eric was married to Francine, but we didn't know that she was the daughter of the district attorney." It seemed like she or he had enough power to get Mom taken to the station and placed in an interrogation room for the rest of the night, wearing only that blanket. They released her around 6:00 a.m. when she tried to call you, but you didn't answer. And some people say that God is not merciful, Tyler thought. The problem is, because Eric didn't wake up right away, they did a toxicology on him, and the only weird thing they found was trace amounts of Viagra. When his wife heard this, she was furious, because he has a heart condition and would never accept something like that. At least that's what she said. The medics said it was good that there was a fire because it meant he got to the hospital quickly enough that they could prevent him from falling into a coma. Otherwise, things could get really bad. Tyler asked, "Even worse?" Mike chimed in. "The police brought my mother back into the interview room, and this morning the police came to the house to try to collect some evidence. But the firefighters threw the bottle and glasses onto the floor during the fire, breaking them. With all the water, bottles destroyed, and leftover wine, there is no uncontaminated evidence that can be collected. I suspect that now they are just shaking my mother during interrogation. Everyone thinks he took Viagra when he shouldn't have, and without any proof, I'll be surprised if they keep Mom around much longer. They were also able to get the Tesla out of the garage." Mom and Francine were all over the news this morning. It wasn't very pleasant. Tyler asked, "Where is your mother now?" Jamie said, "She's still at the police station. They said they would call us when we could go and pick her up. I'm so sorry, Dad. We should have just told you instead of trying to get even. We were so angry and only made a bad situation worse." While his children looked scared, a smile slowly began to spread across Tyler's face. He stood up and said, "I appreciate what you guys tried to do. I really do. This means a lot to me. Honestly, I don't think you've made anything worse. All things considered, I think it worked out pretty well. I'm going home now. Your mother will need you both." I'll let you decide who takes her away from the station. It won't be me." They understood. On the way home, Tyler stopped at the bank and transferred half of their accounts to a new account in just his name. He will take care of the rest of the finances later this evening or tomorrow. He stopped at the local market and picked up some trash bags to take his clothes to the dry cleaner because he suspected that everything in the house now smelled of smoke. As he approached the house, he didn't pay much attention to the damage from the fire. The part of the kitchen leading to the garage looked like a war zone. He went to the bedroom and put all his clothes into bags to take to the dry cleaner. The insurance company will receive the bill. He saw that the bed was not made, and this thought saddened him for a moment, but only for a moment. He knew what he was going to do. Divorcing the bitch was the obvious starting point. Divide finances, find an apartment, travel more, and use my newfound free time to be with my children more often and have much more fun. He asked if Mike could forward him the video so he could forward it to local news stations. Rebecca's volunteer organizations will certainly be proud to have one of their board members raise their profile in this way. As he was loading the last bag into his car, a police car pulled up. They asked to see some form of identification. Having heard about what happened, and perhaps even having previously been there or seen the video, one of the officers looked confused, but still asked, "Are you going to be okay?" All the events of the day played over and over in Tyler's head, like one of those old-fashioned wheels that people spun on game shows. When the wheel in his head stopped at Veronica's calling card, a wide smile appeared on Tyler's face. "I'll be fine, officer. Rest assured that I will be fine." Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.